Okay, so this was one of the images for Spark Magazine, fall 2015. You may recognize it. And I basically just want to lighten it up, make it's a little flat right now. So the basic thing that I want to do is up the contrast a little and mess with the colors. So I've already gone in and done uh, my frequency separation, which is just, as you can see, it's just really light kind of retouching. Um, so I probably will do that in a different tutorial some other time. Okay, so the first thing I always start with is layer adjustments. So down here, this is where you want to do all your adjustments. Your curves, your levels, any kind of brightness contrast, you want to do it down here because it'll automatically make it a new Photoshop layer that you can separately manipulate from the actual image. Before I knew about this, I used to pull them up and do them up here where you just do new or image adjustments. But like I said, that adjusts, if I wanted to do that to this, it would adjust the whole thing, and then I'd be stuck with the original. Like I wouldn't have the original anymore. So, I have my snapshots all set. Make sure you keep your history on. Always make copies of the background, just in case, you never know. Okay, so let's start with, I usually start with curves, and I've already set a few points from what I had before. So when I use curves, I usually just eyeball it. For the most part, the basic gist of curves is that you have your highlights up here in this top section, and all your shadowy areas are down here. So let's say I wanted to bring out the shadows, I'd pull this up just a little bit. So like your pure black is here, your pure white starts up here, and that's the basic gist of it. So I have a few different points. First one is 24, 25. Then I have 58, 59, 106, 128, 200, 229, and I don't think that's here. Yeah, there you go. Okay, another thing I have is adding a solid color is a great way to just kind of, it's kind of like a watercolor wash, if you'll remember in art class, where you basically just pick like a base color you want to go over the entire image, and it'll fill it in, or it'll fill in the shadows or whatever area, depending on how you the fill of that layer is set. I had kind of a washed out little manila-y color from before. I usually set it to overlay or soft light. I think I had it on overlay. And then the opacity was pretty light. Let's see, soft light. Yeah, so I kind of liked what it did to the back. It just kind of filled it in. It's still looking kind of oddly washed out here, so I had another curves layer. Let's see. So this one was 35, 32. Then I had 69, 80. And 123, 140. Okay, there we go. That's a little more natural. And the order I had it in. Order actually does matter for the most part. If you see, it makes slight changes. Depending on if different layers are more opaque than the other ones, it'll change depending on what order you have these in. So we can just go ahead and just drag the copy of the original one to the top and see what it's done so far. Yeah, so I like that. It's kind of just warmed it up just a little bit, added a little more contrast. I still wanted to keep that kind of grungy look, so one of the things I did was add in yellow to the blacks with selective color. So I have a selective color layer. And the selective color is a great way to just kind of mess with the tones of your image and see what you might end up wanting to do. So this is a great way to fix your skin tones sometimes too. If you want to pull out the reds, like take them out, desaturate different areas, it's great for that too. So usually I just pull it up and I'll just like mess with all the different options until I get something that I like. So for this one I had 24, and -8 and 0, and then I adjusted the yellows. The yellows and reds are usually, for your skin tones, those are what you're going to mess with. And then under cyan I had a little bit done, so -4, oops, -2, -3 and 0, and then under blacks I brought the yellow up +5. So it's very slight, but her skin tone is a little more natural looking, and if you'll see in the shadows down here, like on her dress, it's a little less blue and a little more yellow. I don't know, I think of grunge as kind of like this muddy olivey yellow color, so hence the color fill that I added beforehand. Okay, so I have one more curves layer that added just a little bit more warmth, and I also had the opacity of that set to about 20, so I'm going to go ahead and just make the curves layer, change the opacity to 20, and then make my adjustments. Okay, so I have it at D1, .114. Sorry about that. 137. And the last one is 198, 221. So with curves, the first curve that you'll see is the RGB. So it's like your shadow, highlight, contrast, the whole image. But you can actually go into each separate color channel and adjust those individually. And they work the exact same way. So for example, you want to put some red in your shadows. You're going to mess with it down here, right? So it adds it more to the darker areas of your image. If you wanted to add red to your highlights, so like up here, then you would pull the red up here. Okay, so first one I have is so that added just a slight, I liked what it did to the background up here, slightly. Then I had one more layer, and it's probably one of my favorite ways to adjust images. It's called a gradient. So it's similar to solid color, it's just, it's gradiated, so it's a gradient right here. And you can adjust the angle at which it comes into the image at, you can adjust the actual color of itself by double clicking on this, on the color. So I had a kind of yellowy, bright fill color, like this. And by dragging on the actual image, you can adjust how it comes in. No, this is not the final image. I don't want it to look like this. I think some people, when they learn about the gradient fill or any other kind of Photoshop tool, it's really easy to get carried away, and it's really easy to just want to leave your image like this and say, oh cool, look, the sun's like shining on her face, it's great. That's why the opacity tool exists. Okay, so I set it to about here. Here's the thing, I like what it did to the background a little bit more than what it's doing to her face. It's washing her face out, and that's not what I want. So hit OK on that. So now we have this fill layer. I'm going to bring the opacity down of the whole thing to about 70. Still a little crazy. Might bring it some more. Let's see. Okay, so now I'm gonna work with the mask of this layer. See how every single layer has a white like sheet of paper next to it, basically? You need to select that. Go into your brush tool, and you're going to paint over the spots where you don't want it. So the white means it's on. So the white over the whole, this is like a little mini screenshot of your whole picture. So if I paint black, that's really opaque. Make sure your brush's opacity is set correctly. So if I paint black over the picture, you can see where it's blocking it out, essentially. Blocking it out with black. So I want to paint it over her face ever so slightly so that it's not as crazy there. Yeah, I think. And you can play with the opacity of the brush as well to get something, to get it a little more muddy. You can play with the opacity again here. There we go. Slightly down. I like them to be on even numbers. There we go. Maybe about 35. Okay, and that's about what I did for this image. Just kind of warmed it up. I like my images to look pretty warm. But at the same time, we still have like the cool tones of her dress, and then the glasses. So just gives it an overall grungier look. It's a little bit more contrasted. Let's see the before. Before was pretty washed out. This is also before I did any retouching. And bam. There we go. So I hope that was helpful just a little bit, and I'm definitely planning on doing more of these in the future. So keep a lookout. Thanks, guys.